episode of the Security Clearance Careers Podcast, aka Clearedcast. I am your host, Katie, and today I am so delighted to have Major Jackie Barnum, who is a logistics officer currently serving on active duty in the Marine Corps. So she graduated from the Naval Academy and was commissioned as a second lieutenant. And then she went through basic at Quantico, went to finish the logistics officer course, and before being assigned in Okinawa, Japan, which I've heard lovely things. So during her time there, she held the position of platoon commander and took part in several exercises in the Philippines and the Republic of South Korea. So following that time in Okinawa, she was stationed at Camp Pendleton and then later served as a company officer at the Naval Academy Prep School in Rhode Island. So currently, she is the headquarters company commander at Marine Air Control Group 38, located at Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. And so Jackie is really passionate about mentoring young leaders. So we're going to talk about her organization, Mentors in Service, and then how she really uses social media to inspire the younger generation to be interested in the military community, which is obviously really important to clearance jobs. So being that the bulk of our security cleared job seekers are, active duty or those transitioning, including veterans as well. So, Jackie, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, no. So delighted to have you military influencers on the podcast because I'm just so fascinated with all of the content that you create and how you really are helping, the cleared workforce in terms of industry and contractors later, because those that transition out of the military and their new civilian life tend to go that route in national security. So excited to chat today. Really, I wanted to talk first. Hopefully I got your intro right, but I wanted to
That
see
was
if you could give
beautiful.
me
That sounded more interesting than it probably is, but yeah, it's perfect.
give us a brief overview of your, because you have changed positions throughout the years, but your day to day in the military and really, I guess your call to service and what inspired you to join.
So, my original call to service dates back to when I was in fourth grade. That was, for me, was when 9/11 happened. And I remember, so I was in California. My dad's family is from New York. And so I remember waking up that morning and like seeing on the news something going on. And then all of a sudden I hear like my family starting to, get really worried about my uncle who was on the 98th floor of the North Tower. And so that day and like the 3 days following, we just were waiting and waiting and waiting to hear something, hear anything. And that event was just like had such a big impact on me where someone took something away from our family. They took away someone who had two sons, who had a wife, and a whole family. He was my godfather. And so at that age, that's a really impressionable age. And so I just knew that I wanted to serve in some capacity. And so fast forwarding a little bit, I somehow heard about the Naval Academy and I did research on it. And then my family went to DC and I was like, I want to go visit this place. And I'm not from a military family. So they were looking at the Naval Academy and like, wow, oh my gosh, like, okay, we'll go look at this. Visited, and I don't know if you ever seen the yard, but it's like so beautiful. It's like stunning campus. I love structure. So like we got to watch formation and I just was like so in awe. And any other college that I ever went to after, I was like, nothing compares. Like this is what I want to do. And then fast forward to high school. It was kind of I kind of pushed it to the back of my mind because, just a young teenager girl, just feeling self doubt. I was like, I can't get in. I'm not going to get in. And like a miracle, I think one of these like kind of divine intervention things happened where General Angela Salinas, who was the first Latina general in the Marine Corps, happened to be a graduate of my high school. And she, when I was a senior, came and spoke to my high school class. Don't remember a word she said, but she came in her uniform. And I just remember turning to my best friend and I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do that. Um, so I Naval Academy popped back into my head and I was like, pedal to the metal. I was a senior too. So I had like I was behind at that point with applications. And so I remember applying. You have to put your whole soul into applying. Got in, and I remember having my acceptance letter to the Naval Academy. And then I was also applying to art school because I kind of, as you can see through my Instagram, I have kind of like an artistic side and creativity side. So I was looking at these acceptance letters, and I remember hearing somebody in my head saying, if you don't go to the Naval Academy, you're making the wrong decision. And I was like, okay, I'm listening to this gut feeling, went for it, never looked back. And then at the Naval Academy, I just knew in the back of my mind I wanted to be a Marine just because it's the more challenging option. You have to, do the physical fitness test. It's just more, selective than the other, than just being in the Navy. And so, yeah, and I just have that personality where I'm like, I wanna do the hardest thing, like, I wanna prove to myself that I can do it, and so, yeah, that's pretty much the story of how I got into the military, into the Marine Corps, what inspired me, so, yeah, and then my current day-to-day is I'm a company commander, so I'm in charge of about 100 Marines, and it's a lot of just, making sure that people are doing the right thing, doing their training, set up for success, ready to kind of go at a moment's notice. So whatever that entails, I'm just kind of like the force behind making sure we are ready to get out the door whenever that happens.
Well, and I love because I feel like so many people that I interview come from military families, and it's just kind of this generational, yep, I plan to do this, but you have such a unique sort of call to service in that. And for me too, I mean, I was in elementary school at the time of 9/11, and so that was kind of, I think, more in hindsight, a driving force to working in the national security community as I have. But that's so great. You're kind of a sort of first generation Marine, and being the badass that you are, that's super awesome. And so I'd love to hear, I want to talk like misconception, because obviously, and we'll get into your social media, but obviously you're trying to shed light on the military being able to, have these different sides. I mean, I I never knew that you were applying to art school. That's super awesome. But what are some maybe like misconceptions about the military that you found as you've been in?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that there's just like one type of job. Like if you're in the military, that means you're in the infantry. And that absolutely isn't true. Like, yes, that is the like who we all support and they are super important. And yes, that exists. But that's like half of the Marine Corps. Like I'm a logistics officer, which is the second biggest MOS like job that exists. And so you don't have to be that certain personality of like, I just want to be in the field all the time. And like, there are people that love that and want to do that. And there are like people like myself, I'm like, okay, I'll do that when I have to do it. But I can serve in this other capacity and doing support and doing other sort of things that contribute to the overall mission. Like every single job is important. And I think it's a misconception when you're just, when you don't know very much about the military, it's either like you're in the military or you're not in the military. And if you're in the military, like there's just one certain path and that's it. But really, in reality, and I think this is why I care so much about mentorship, is when you're in, your path can take you in so many different directions and there's so many ways you can serve and there's so many different places you can serve in and there's so many opportunities and doors that can lead to cooler opportunities. Like there's just so much contained in the military that people don't people don't know about.
Well, and if you check, I mean, for any of the armed services, the different military occupational specialties, there are a ton, and there is lots of cogs for the big wheel. And so, do you have any? I guess it can be positive or negative, but what is like a memorable experience that you have from serving?
Okay, so the most memorable that I just at least something that gave me the most, like, fulfillment and purpose as especially as, like, a Marine Corps officer, is something that I try to do when I have a bunch of Marines, especially junior Marines, is I will, like, sit the top 10% down and be like, "Hey, this is where you are currently, have you ever considered commissioning?" And I did this, I remember when I was a company commander back in 2015, 6 no, 20 probably 18. Trying to think. I was on Pendleton, and I did this with my Marines, and I sat 5 of them down. I was like, "Have you ever considered commissioning? You are my top performers in this company. Like, I see this potential in you." And a few of them kind of like laughed it off or just kind of wrote it off. But one was like, his eyes lit up and he was like, I remember he said to me the words, "You saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself." And at that point, he completely, he had to take the SATs again. He applied to schools, got in, completed the commissioning program, completed college, and then just this year, I went to his commissioning in New Orleans. And so that full circle moment where you have such a direct impact on people that you lead and seeing something in them and motivating them and inspiring them to see it in themselves and then take the action to go through because that's not an easy process either to go through that. So just being there for somebody, so that's definitely like the most memorable story that just sticks with me. And like all I always think about when I I'm working on my mentor program, like, hey, the people in our mentor program are literally changing lives. Like that's the power that we have as mentors.
I love that. And mentorship is super important no matter the place you're at in your career. And I just love your thoughts and words on leadership and really building people up and inspiring them to, be the best they can be, but basically for the greater good of the group. It is also an added benefit. So let's talk challenges. Have you faced any really big challenges in your military career, and talk about how you may have overcame those?
Definitely. I mean, the Marine Corps is designed to be challenging, so that's why I love it. And it's always like this. I don't know when the next challenge, or it's not like I don't know if another challenge is coming up. It's more of like there is going to be another challenge, so I just don't know when it's going to come. And I think the Marine Corps 100% is the reason why I have developed resilience. Um, because it's full of every type of challenge. Like you have the physical challenge of TBS was is not easy. Like it's not. I don't know. If you, some people think it's say it's easy, but I think they're liars. Um, it's a lot of physical challenges, a lot of mental challenges. Just learning, just being a Marine and learning the job, especially when you're a junior officer, like brand new to the fleet, trying to learn your job, trying to figure out which way is what. That is a mental challenge. Um, I have been challenged definitely ever since starting my social media. People, it's, still a relatively new thing that exists, especially in the military. People were trying to figure out how to navigate it because social media is such a powerful tool. But once you put yourself out there, then that is what the world sees, and you can't take some things back. So trying to be, and I kind of am one of the sort of like first ones to sort of test the waters. And so trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And then along with that is people's opinions. So that is just more like testing my resilience and more challenges. Um, but every single time I am challenged, it only just makes me stronger and stronger and more sure of myself. So it's all a blessing. It's all wonderful. But yeah, definitely the most recently, um, the challenge has been kind of like the social media stuff because I've been doing this now for 3, 4 years. And it's interesting because, like, I am a major in the Marine Corps. Like, I'm not a lance corporal, so I do have kind of like different eyeballs and different expectations, but I do understand the art and science of social media and how to connect with people that are interested in service, how to connect with junior Marines. Like, we need to meet Marines where they're at. And where are they? They're on their phones and they're online. So trying to kind of crack that code. Um, I'm kind of like the guinea pig. I made myself the guinea pig and I'm okay with it. But other people like are not okay with it as much. And just kind of dealing with that has been a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I think anyone who is in a public facing role, but particularly social media, where it can become so volatile, is it's a lot. And so let's talk about your social media. So when you started it a couple years ago, did you have the goal like I'm going to become a military influencer, or did this start as like a personal account and you're like, "Oh, hey, I'm reaching this new audience." Like, let's talk about that kind of fruition.
Yeah. So my Instagram was private all the way up until like during COVID. And so 2019, I made it public. And then in 2020, I was stationed in Newport, Rhode Island at the Naval Academy Prep School. And that was where I was in charge of 18, 19, 20-year olds. So basically, kids, pre officers. These kids, I call them kids, call them my kids. But these students are basically preparing to go to the Naval Academy. So most of them fresh out of high school. Some of them are prior enlisted. So, but still young, have only done like an enlistment or, two. And so it was COVID and TikTok was a thing and the trending audios and the dances and whatever. And I remember my students actually came into my office and were like, "Ma'am, we should post a reel together. Like we should do it like a TikTok thing." And I was like, "What is that? Like what does that even mean?" And they were the ones that taught me how to use Instagram and like what a reel is. And so honestly, that is how it started. Is like it started as a morale boosting activity because they during that time they didn't have anywhere to go. They couldn't leave base for an entire year. And like honestly, I couldn't go anywhere either. So I basically lived in my office and they were all I had. And so anytime they could send me an idea and we would do some sort of like fun TikTok thing. And so that was when my audience started to grow. And then I was like, "Hey, this is actually a cool platform for me to share actual leadership advice or advice from other people and give other people like, amplify other people's voices from their experience and the different services." And then from there, as my following kept growing because of that, I started to get questions about being a supply officer in the Navy, about OCS, things that I didn't have experience in. And so that was when I started posting, "Hey, this person has a question about this. And can anyone be a mentor?" And that was honestly how my mentors in service, it wasn't even called that, but that's how my mentor program organically started. And just my Instagram in general literally was like from my students being like, "Ma'am, post a reel." And I didn't know, I was like, "What is that?" And now fast forward, now you see what it is now, but I didn't wake up one day and be like, "Bing, I want to be a military influencer." Like I never imagined that. That wasn't even a thing, you know what I mean? Like that wasn't even something that existed at that time.
Well, and I love the stories of how things happen organically because that is life, no matter the industry, whether it's military and moving up the ranks there or outside of there. I mean, things happen organically usually, and it takes those sort of gut decisions like you did before you attended the Naval Academy. Um, so what has been the most rewarding aspect of being an influencer and having the platform that you have? Obviously, mentors in service is fantastic, and matching people who are looking for a mentor or in need of one. Any other sort of rewarding parts that you'd like to share here?
I think the moments that are rewarding are small moments when I'm just like in like public on my own at like either on base or like, for example, at the air show on Miramar, like, I'm just working, and somebody in the public, in the crowd, will come up to me and recognize me and say, "I used your mentor program, and now I am doing XYZ." I was over at USD for, like, a mixer with their NROTC midshipmen, and one of the female midshipmen came over to me and was like, I used your mentor program and you set me up with these mentors that I have been in communication with. I've had a student or a mentor mentee connection made where the mentee ended up being the mentor's first salute. So these are all like little stories, like little success stories of people who I otherwise in the crowd wouldn't even know who they are. But our program is impacting people. And then for them to tell me and go out of their way to thank me if they see me, it's like so I mean, it's like so just amazing and so meaningful to me. So those are the moments where I'm like, because sometimes it's hard when you're running a mentor program and it's all sort of like in this virtual made up space and it's not tangible. Like it's not something we can hold in our hands. And so sometimes I'm like, I'm just sending out emails. I don't know if anyone's seeing them. I don't know. But then to have that affirmation that impact is being made and it is making a difference is just so cool.
Yeah, it probably helps to combat some of the, like, negative comments and trolls and maybe things that lead to, like, imposter syndrome, like, "Am I" but no, but I get it, you are making a difference, and so tell us a little bit about, how it grew from just, posting here and there about, "Hey, is anybody able to mentor this person?" How does Mentors in Service work now?
So now, so actually, in a few weeks will be our official 1 year nonprofit anniversary. Um, because basically the program has been in existence for 4 years. And I was running it all on my own. But I realized a year ago that I couldn't keep doing this by myself. Like I needed help. We needed to find a way to scale the program because if I checked my email right now, I would have probably 4 requests for mentors. So it's just one of those I just became to a point where I was like I'm underwater. I want to help as many people as we can. I need a team. So that's when the nonprofit idea came and was born. So now I have a team. There are 6 of us, and then we have 2 board members, that provide guidance to us. And um, so now I have a team that helps me scale it. We're building a platform online to automate a lot of it because, before I was doing everything by hand and emailing every single person. So now it's kind of going to be way more automated and just streamlined. And today we are we're just shy of 3,000 mentor connections. Our goal is to reach 3,000 by the end of the year, which I
That's
think we can do.
amazing. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, so how does the process kind of work, as you're building this platform to streamline and automate the connection making? How does it work? Like, if people are listening to this podcast today and they're like, "Hey, I want to get involved," how would that work?
So right now, if they were to go to my Instagram, JACKIEE dot Barnum, BARNUM, there's like, and they go to the little link in my bio, there's a button that just says, I want a mentor. And they just fill out this form with their information and then a description of who they're looking for or what their goal is. And then I get that. And then every Monday, so today we're recording this on a Monday. If you were to look at my Instagram story, you will see all the requests that I received last week. And then people who look at my story can reply. So what I think is successful about our program is that it's not just like, hey, do you want mentorship? Do you want to be a mentor? Fill out this form and you fill out this form and I'll match you based off of like some similarities. Like, yes, there's some value in that method, but I think our method is successful because people are looking for a mentor that has navigated a specific path. And someone that reads my story to see these requests can be like, "Oh, I did OCS. Like I did the like HPSP medical program." Like there's no intake form that could possibly like capture every bit of information about somebody. It's really when a mentor sees that and they're like, "Oh, I had that experience. Like I will help that person." And so then after I get their responses, I basically email the mentee, the person wanting help, to say, "Hey, here are people who are looking to connect with you and can help you." So then I put that onus back on the mentee where they ultimately do need to take ownership of the process and reach out to those people. Like, "Hey, I'm empowering you. Here are the people that are waiting for your email. Have at it." And another thing about our program is that I will give that person every single name of people who've responded. I kind of think of it as like therapy, where you're not going to necessarily click with the first person you're matched up with. So if I have someone that wants to do MESEP, which is the Marine Corps enlisted to officer program, the commissioning program, we have probably 20 mentors in our system that can help with that. And I will send all 20 names every time because maybe you want to speak to a woman specifically who did MESEP. Maybe you want to talk to someone who ended up doing aviation after MESEP. And we have those sort of specific breakdowns. And so I'm like, hey, here's everyone that you can speak to. I am just hoping that one of those connections helps you with your goal.
I love that. And it's, very apparent from a lot of your content that you really just are passionate about helping people and helping people get connected to other people who can help them in their own career trajectory. And it's super authentic and it's super genuine. And I super love it. And so, what, I mean, I really want to talk more about the negative, comments and trolls, quote unquote, because that is a difficult thing when you put yourself out there in a public facing role. I know that many in your industry or in your who have a platform of your nature have experienced it. How do you kind of deal with that internally? And I mean, I suffer from imposter syndrome all the time. Like even like constructive criticism sometimes I'm like, Katie, you're terrible. You shouldn't even be in this position. So how do you deal with that though? Because that's a natural thing, particularly for women in the military sort of community.
It definitely is. Something that a strategy that I try to implement when I'm having those moments where people are just, I'll have days where I'll wake up, and this is such a bad habit, but we're all human. We know the first thing we do when we wake up is look at our phones. I look at Instagram within 3 seconds of my eyeballs opening, and it'll be like comment after comment sometimes of like, you could imagine, just really not nice things. And what I try to do is remember that those people that make those comments, if you go to look at their profiles or look at them, they have no face, they have no name, they have made no impact on the world or on anyone, or aren't trying to like, impart positivity on the world, which is something that you're doing. Um, and then I look at my profile and I see my face and my name and my words and my things that I care about. And I'm like, yep, I did post that. I stand by it. I would post it again. And just being proud of what you're doing, because when you try to make a change and do something different, it is not going to be welcomed with open arms by 100% of the people. Um, and honestly, like in a weird way, the more kind of hate that I get, it only sort of proves to me that this is why I'm doing it, is because we need to make a change and we need to be supportive of service members and especially women. And, like it just shows that this is why I'm doing it, is because there's unhappy people, and I'm not gonna stop just because they don't like it. Um, I never claim to speak to 100% of every single service member. Like, I know that there's many people in the military that don't relate to me, and I don't relate to them either. But there is a group of people that are like me, that don't have a military family background, that, you know, do have a personality like me, that all these kinds of things, and that's who I'm talking to. So, I mean, just when I have those moments of doubt, I have to remember those moments that I talked about earlier, of the people that come up to me and thank me for the difference I'm making, and the conferences that I'm asked to attend to speak at, and that helps me fight imposter syndrome, because it's like they wouldn't ask me to be a speaker if I didn't have this platform. Like, plain and simple. Like, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I would just be another person in the military that just does their job and that's it. And that's okay too. But because I am stepping out of my comfort zone, putting myself out there, there are people that are embracing it. And that's who I have to lean into and not pay attention to the haters, because that is just such a waste of energy. And I'll never change their mind. And I don't want to change their mind. Like, I don't have time for that. But I do want to spend my time on the people that are looking up to me, that do want guidance and advice and inspiration from someone who's been in for 10 years. I do have 10 years of experience at least. And when I was 18, I didn't have anyone to look up to. So that's what I kind of try to do in my mind. I'm not perfect and we're human. So sometimes it fails, but 9 times out of 10, that strategy works for me.
Well, and I love that. In the face of doubt, remember those moments of impact. And I think me, myself included, could definitely use those words. So I super appreciate those. So let's talk about, and Jackie, I just so appreciate you coming on the podcast, particularly for our audience that might still be in the military, who can relate to you and your story. So I encourage everybody to go follow Jackie. What are your goals for the future? Personally, as a service member and as an influencer with the platform that you have?
I would say one of my goals, that's hard. So, my goal, like, you mean my goal in the Marine Corps? What is one of my goals?
Yeah, I mean, professionally, personally, just because you're obviously not just in the military, like you have a life, like what are your goals? I think, like you're in a job interview. What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year
Yeah. Oh,
plan?
great.
No, I
Okay,
mean, like
perfect.
you obviously have a platform. So, like, is Mentors in Service always going to be your side gig? Is that eventually going to be a full-time thing when you get out? Like, have you thought about this stuff, or am I just asking questions and you're
These
like,
are
shut the hell
no,
up,
you're
lady?
you're not wrong. These are things that I think about. I don't have, and this is honestly some advice that I give to people that are in the military that are like me, because you will meet people who are like, at least when I went to school at the Naval Academy, some of my classmates, they just knew they wanted to be in for 20 years. They just knew it. And you almost feel bad if you don't know that for yourself. And so, or you're like looked down on, like if you want to do any less than that, like, hey, it's okay to like serve your time and take it one set of orders at a time. Like, that's what I did. I didn't know I would even be in this long. So, in terms of, my goal is I'm going to continue to take it one set of orders at a time, because I do feel so much fulfillment as a Marine Corps officer in my job, serving. Like, I love being a Marine and I don't want to stop doing that. I love running the nonprofit. Could it be a full time thing? Absolutely. And maybe eventually that will be. But right now I'm able to manage it on my, on my own time in the evening. My team is wonderful. So we all work really well together. So I don't have anything decided, because I think it's only when my, that purpose and drive goes away. And if you wake up and as a Marine and you're like, I don't feel the purpose of this anymore, like that's when it's time to hang up the uniform. But I just don't feel that yet. So I'm staying in until that feeling goes away.